The council chamber stretched wide and tall, built to make visitors feel small. Ambassador Daniel Harris walked through the massive doors for what he knew would be the last time. His shoes made soft sounds on the polished floor as he moved toward the center platform, where humans were allowed to stand, not sit. Stand. The 7 founding races of the Galactic Council sat in their elevated seats, looking down at him like judges at a trial. Daniel had been doing this for 3 years now. 3 long years of presenting Earth's case, showing humanity's achievements and asking politely for a chance to join the galactic community. 3 years of being told to wait, to prove themselves more, to be patient. He was tired of being patient. Lisa Monroe stood beside him, carrying the data tablets with their latest presentation. She had been his deputy through all of this, and he could see the frustration in her eyes too. They had prepared everything perfectly this time. Evidence of human innovation in medicine, engineering, and science. Records of peaceful first contacts with 12 different species. Economic projections showing what humanity could contribute to the galactic trade network. None of it would matter. Council Speaker Vorn sat in the highest chair, his blue-scaled face showing nothing but boredom. The Velkrin were an old race, proud of their 12,000 years of recorded history. They looked at humanity's mere 300 years of space travel, and saw children playing with toys they did not understand. Ambassador Harris, Vorn said, his voice echoing through the chamber, we have reviewed your latest application for council membership. Once again, we find humanity lacking in the necessary qualities for admission. Daniel kept his face calm. He had expected this. May I ask what qualities we lack, Speaker Vorn? Our technology meets your standards. Our economy is stable. We have shown peaceful intentions in all our interactions. Technology can be bought or stolen, Vorn replied, waving one clawed hand dismissively. Your species has only recently achieved faster than light travel. 50 years ago you were confined to a single star system. This is not enough time to prove stability. A Thorian council member leaned forward, her cybernetic eye glowing softly. Your emotional nature concerns us, Ambassador. Humans feel too much. You make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. This is dangerous in galactic politics. Daniel wanted to laugh at that. Humans were too emotional? He had watched Vorn throw a tantrum last month, when a minor trade dispute went against the Velkrin. But he said nothing. Arguing never helped. We also find your approach to problems chaotic, added a representative from the Zephyr Collective, speaking through a translation device. You do not follow proper scientific methods. You combine theories that should not be combined. You take risks that no sensible species would take. Lisa stepped forward slightly. Those risks have led to breakthroughs that benefited everyone. Our medical research has saved lives across 20 different species. Our engineering solutions have been adopted by half the ships in this sector. Accidents, Vorn said coldly. Lucky accidents from a species that does not understand what it is doing. When your luck runs out, you will cause disasters. We cannot allow such a reckless race into the council. The other council members nodded. They had already made their decision before Daniel even entered the room. This entire session was just a formality, a chance for them to reject humanity one more time and feel superior about it. Daniel took a deep breath. What would it take, Speaker Vorn? Tell me clearly. What must humanity do to earn membership? Vorn smiled, showing too many teeth. Time, Ambassador. You need time to mature as a species. Perhaps in 500 years we can reconsider your application. 500 years? Lisa could not hide her shock. At minimum, Vorn continued. However, we are not unreasonable. We understand that humanity desires connection with the greater galactic community. Therefore, the Council has prepared a generous offer. He gestured, and a holographic document appeared in the air between them. Daniel read it quickly, and his blood turned cold. You want Earth to become a vassal state, he said quietly. A probationary member, Vorn corrected. You would provide resources, labor, and military support when needed. In exchange, we would offer protection and guidance. You would learn from the elder races how to properly conduct yourselves. After 500 years of faithful service, we would grant you full membership. Without voting rights, Daniel noted. Without any say in council decisions. We would have to follow every rule, pay every tax, and send our people to fight in your wars, all while having no voice at all. Exactly, Vorn said, as if explaining something to a slow child. This is how young races prove themselves. Every species must earn their place. You should be grateful we are offering this opportunity." The other council members looked pleased with themselves. They thought they were being generous. They thought humanity would jump at the chance to serve them for 5 centuries just for the promise of maybe being treated as equals someday. Daniel looked at Lisa. She met his eyes, and he saw the same thing he felt: anger, frustration, and something else: pride. They were humans, and humans did not bow to anyone. He turned back to Vorn and the council. "Thank you, Speaker Vorn, for making our choice very clear." Vorn looked confused. "You accept the terms?" "No," Daniel said simply. "I am withdrawing Earth's application for council membership. Effective immediately, humanity will no longer seek to join this organization. We will pursue our own path among the stars." The council chamber went silent. No species had ever withdrawn an application before. They either kept trying until they were accepted or gave up and faded into obscurity. No one simply walked away. "You cannot do that," Vorn said, but he sounded uncertain now. "I just did," Daniel replied. He gathered his tablets and handed them to Lisa. "Humanity thanks the Galactic Council for their time and consideration. We wish you well in all your future endeavors. However, we will no longer participate in these negotiations. Earth will chart its own course from this day forward." He turned and walked toward the massive doors. Lisa followed him without hesitation. Behind them, the council members began talking all at once, their voices rising in confusion and disbelief. "Ambassador Harris," Vorn called out, "you are making a mistake. You need the council. Without our protection and guidance, humanity will fail." Daniel stopped at the doorway and looked back. "Perhaps," he said calmly, "but we would rather fail on our own terms than succeed as your servants. Goodbye, Speaker Vorn." He walked through the doors and they closed behind him with a heavy sound. In the hallway outside, other members of the human delegation waited. They looked at Daniel with questions in their eyes. "Pack everything," he told them. "We are going home, all of us. Earth is done here." As they walked toward their ship, Lisa spoke quietly. "They will expect us to come back begging within a few months." Daniel smiled for the first time in days. "Then they are going to be very surprised. Contact Earth. Tell them we are coming home and tell them we have work to do. If the council will not accept us as equals, then we will show them they were wrong to dismiss us. Humanity does not need their approval to thrive." The human delegation boarded their ship and left Axis Prime behind. In the council chamber, Speaker Vorn sat in his high chair and laughed. "They will be back," he told the other council members. "Give them a year, maybe 2. When they realize how dangerous the galaxy is without our protection, they will return with apologies and accept our generous terms." The council agreed. They returned to their normal business, already forgetting about the emotional humans who had just stormed out. It never occurred to any of them that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. 6 months had passed since Daniel Harris walked out of the council chamber. Earth had gone silent, and the Galactic Council assumed humanity was sulking in their little corner of space. Speaker Vorn occasionally made jokes about the emotional humans who could not handle rejection. The other council members laughed along, confident that any day now, Earth would send a message begging to return to negotiations. That message never came. Instead, something else was happening in the regions of space the council had long ignored. Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching as his crew prepared to jump into another unexplored system. This was their 15th jump this month alone, and each one took them further from council space and deeper into territory the elder races had written off as worthless. "System scan coming up now, Captain," said his navigation officer, a young woman named Claire who had joined the exploration service right after humanity withdrew from council talks. 3 planets in the habitable zone, asteroid belt rich in rare minerals and no signs of council presence. Jake smiled. "Mark it for survey team follow-up. Let us see what else is out here." Before the council rejection, human exploration had been limited. They had to ask permission to enter new territories, file reports with council bureaucrats, and follow dozens of regulations about what they could and could not do. Now, with no council oversight, humanity was free to explore wherever they wanted, and they wanted to explore everywhere. The Horizon's Edge was just one of 40 exploration vessels Earth had launched in the past 6 months. Human ships were pushing into regions the council considered too dangerous, too remote, or too unprofitable to bother with. What the elder races saw as worthless, humans saw as opportunity. On the frontier world of New Dakota, Administrator Amy Peterson watched as the morning sun rose over humanity's first independent trade hub. The settlement had grown from a small outpost to a thriving port in just 4 months. Ships from a dozen different species came and went daily, most of them from races that had never been welcome in council space. A trader from the Krell communes approached Amy's office, his 3 eyes blinking nervously. The Krell were a minor species, small and weak by galactic standards. The council barely acknowledged their existence, and Krell traders were often cheated or ignored by the elder races. Administrator Peterson, the Krell said in halting English, "My ship is loaded with medical supplies for the colony on rainfall. The payment terms you offered are fair. Too fair. Why do humans not charge more? Why do you not demand extra fees like the Velcrin always do?" Amy looked at him with genuine confusion. "Because we agreed on a price, and that is the price. Why would we change it?" The Krell trader seemed amazed by this simple honesty. "You are very different from the council races," he said softly. "They always find reasons to take more than agreed. Extra taxes, processing fees, protection charges. Trading with them means losing money. Trading with humans means making money. Then keep trading with us," Amy said with a smile. "Tell your friends. Tell everyone. Humans deal fairly, and we do not cheat our partners." The Krell bowed low, a gesture of deep respect in his culture, and left to prepare his ship. Amy watched him go and felt satisfaction. Word was spreading fast across the minor species networks. Humanity was different. Humanity could be trusted. And slowly but surely, species that had been exploited by the Council for centuries were choosing to trade with humans instead. Back on Earth, Dr. Henry Chen stood in his laboratory surrounded by holographic displays showing complex mathematical equations. His team had been working non-stop for 3 months on a problem the Council said was impossible. They were trying to improve faster than light travel beyond what any known species had achieved. "Run the simulation again," Henry said to his assistant, a brilliant young man named Paul, who had a gift for seeing patterns others missed. The holographic display lit up with streams of data. Paul watched it carefully, then suddenly grabbed Henry's arm. "There, do you see it? If we combine the Thorian quantum field theory with the human chaos mathematics and add the Zephyr dimensional folding principles, the 3 systems work together instead of canceling each other out." Henry stared at the simulation. Paul was right. The elder races kept their scientific theories separate, believing that mixing different approaches led to instability. But humans had never learned to think that way. They took ideas from everywhere and combined them in ways no one else would try. "This could cut travel time by 40%, Henry said quietly. "Maybe more." "The Council will say it is impossible," Paul replied. "They will say we are being reckless and chaotic," Henry laughed. "Good thing we do not need their approval anymore. Build a prototype. Let us see if our chaotic approach actually works." On the orbital station above Mars, Colonel Ryan Mitchell reviewed the construction progress of humanity's new defense fleet. 20 ships were already completed, with 30 more in various stages of construction. These were not exploration vessels or trading ships. These were warships designed specifically for defending human interest without needing to follow Council weapon restrictions. The Council limited our armaments because they said we were too aggressive, Mitchell told his chief engineer, a tough woman named Sandra who had served in Earth's defense forces for 20 years. "They wanted to make sure we could never threaten them," Sandra nodded. "So now we design weapons they have never seen before. Missile systems using our new propulsion technology. Energy shields based on our quantum research. Fighter craft that are smaller and faster than anything the Council uses." "Exactly," Mitchell said. "We are not building ships to attack anyone. But if someone decides humanity is an easy target because we are not in the Council anymore, they are going to learn a very painful lesson." Reports from all these activities filtered back to Earth's government daily. President Nathan Brooks read them in his office, amazed at how much humanity had accomplished in just 6 months. Free from Council regulations and oversight, human innovation had exploded. They were exploring faster, trading more successfully, and advancing technologically at a pace that would have been impossible under Council rules. "The Council thought we needed them," Nathan said to his chief advisor, a smart older woman named Helen who had been warning about Council arrogance for years. "They thought we would collapse without their protection and guidance." Helen smiled. They made the classic mistake of believing their own propaganda. They convinced themselves that the elder races were superior, and that younger species like us could never succeed alone. Now we are proving them wrong, and they do not even know it yet. They will know soon enough, Nathan replied. Our traders are spreading across the independent sectors. Our explorers are finding resources and opportunities the Council overlooked. Our scientists are making breakthroughs the elder races said were impossible. How long before the Council notices? They already notice, Helen said. But they are telling themselves it does not matter. Speaker Vorn released a statement last week, calling our expansion efforts cute. He said we were playing in the shallow end of the galaxy and would come crawling back when we encountered real dangers. Nathan shook his head. Let him think that. Every day he underestimates us is another day we grow stronger. On a small trading post near the edge of explored space, Katie Hughes was just finishing her shift as a programmer when she received an unusual signal. Katie was a colonist who had left Earth to seek her fortune on the frontier. She worked maintaining the communication systems for the trading post, a job that was usually boring but paid well. The signal was a distress call, but not in any format she recognized. Katie ran it through her translation software and felt her stomach drop. It was from a Thorian ship and they were dying. Something about a plague, a virus, or infection that was attacking their cybernetic implants. They were asking anyone who could hear them for help. Katie knew she should probably ignore it. The Thorians were council members. They had been part of the group that rejected and insulted humanity. Why should she help them? But she could not ignore it. Despite everything the council had done, these were living beings who were suffering. Katie recorded a message in response promising to forward their call to Earth authorities. She did not know if anyone would help them, but she had to try. Her message reached Earth within 3 days. President Nathan Brooks read it carefully, then called an emergency meeting of his advisors. The Thorian Empire is facing a plague, he told them. It is killing their people by the billions. The council cannot stop it. They need help. Let them suffer, one advisor said coldly. They rejected us. They insulted us. They called us too emotional and too chaotic to join their precious council. Now they want our help? Nathan looked around the room. Is that who we are? Do we let billions die because their leaders were arrogant? The room fell silent. Finally, Helen spoke. If we help them, it will not be as supplicants asking to return to negotiations. We help them as equals offering humanitarian aid. We do it because it is right, not because we want something from them. Nathan nodded slowly. Contact Ambassador Harris. Tell him to prepare for a trip back to Axis Prime. But this time we are not asking for anything. This time, they need us. The quantum plague had started small, just a few dozen cases in the Thorian outer colonies. Within 2 weeks it had spread to every Thorian world in the Empire. Within a month, billions were dying. The Thorian people were heavily cybernetic, their bodies integrated with technology from birth. The plague attacked the connection between biological tissue and machine, causing systems to fail in ways that were agonizing and fatal. Council scientists worked desperately to find a solution. The Velcrin sent their best medical researchers. The Zephyr Collective provided advanced quantum analysis equipment. Every founding race of the Council contributed resources and knowledge. Nothing worked. The plague mutated faster than they could study it, changing its structure every few days to avoid whatever countermeasures they developed. Then the plague jumped species. A Velcrin diplomat who had been working closely with Thorian officials began showing symptoms. Within days, other Velcrin were infected. The disease was adapting, learning to attack the cybernetic enhancements that many council races used. Panic spread through council space faster than the plague itself. Speaker Vorn called an emergency session. His scales had lost their usual luster, and his voice carried an edge of fear that no one had heard before. We are facing an extinction-level threat, he told the assembled council. If we cannot stop this plague, it will destroy not just the Thorians but potentially every cybernetic species in the galaxy. Our best minds have tried everything, the Thorian matriarch said, her voice breaking. She had lost 3 of her own children to the plague already. We have exhausted every traditional approach. The plague operates on principles we do not fully understand. A Zephyr representative spoke through its translation device. We need new perspectives, unconventional approaches, methods we have not tried before. The council chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Finally, A junior member from a smaller council race spoke up hesitantly. What about the humans? Vorn's head snapped toward the speaker. The humans abandoned the council. They made it clear they want nothing to do with us. We rejected them first, the Thorian matriarch said quietly. We told them they were too emotional, too chaotic, too reckless. But perhaps that chaos is exactly what we need now. Our rigid scientific methods have failed. Maybe their unconventional thinking can succeed where we have not. Vorn wanted to argue, but he could not. His pride screamed at him to refuse, to find another solution that did not require crawling to the humans for help. But his people were dying. Billions of them. Pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. Very well, he said, the words tasting bitter. Prepare a message to Earth, request their assistance with the plague crisis. Request? The Thorian matriarch asked. Should we not be more direct? Should we not tell them we need their help? Vorn hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, tell them we need them. The message reached Earth within hours. President Nathan Brooks read it 3 times, hardly believing what he was seeing. The Galactic Council, the same organization that had called humanity too primitive to join them, was asking for help. No, not asking, begging. How do we respond? Helen asked him. Nathan thought carefully. We help them, but we do it our way, on our terms. Contact Dr. Sophie Blake at the research station. If anyone can solve this, it is her team. And get Ambassador Harris ready to travel. He is going back to Axis Prime, but this time he walks in as an equal, not a supplicant. On the research station orbiting a distant star, Dr. Sophie Blake received the briefing about the Thorian plague with intense focus. Sophie had spent the last 4 months studying exotic quantum phenomena in deep space, far from council oversight. Her research into quantum field interactions had led her down paths that traditional council scientists would have called reckless or impossible. Send me everything they have on the plague, she told her assistant, a young scientist named Greg who shared her enthusiasm for unconventional research. Every scan, every analysis, every failed treatment attempt. The data arrived within the hour. Sophie spent the next 12 hours reviewing it, barely stopping to eat or sleep. Greg watched her work, occasionally offering observations or questions. Finally, Sophie leaned back in her chair and laughed. What is it? Greg asked. They have been approaching this all wrong, Sophie said, gesturing at the holographic displays surrounding them. The council scientists are trying to fight the plague like it is a traditional virus or infection. They are trying to kill it, neutralize it, or block it. But that is not what it is. Then what is it? Sophie pulled up a new set of equations. It is a quantum resonance cascade. The plague is not alive in any traditional sense. It is a self-perpetuating quantum pattern that feeds on the energy differential between biological and mechanical systems. The Thorians and other cybernetic species create the perfect environment for it because they have so many biomechanical interfaces. Greg studied the data. So how do we stop it? We do not stop it, Sophie said with a grin. We give it what it wants. We create a stable resonance that satisfies the quantum pattern without killing the host. Instead of fighting the cascade, we redirect it into a harmless loop. That is insane, Greg said, but he was smiling. The council would never try something like that. Exactly why they asked us for help, Sophie replied. Get the team together. We have work to do. While Sophie and her team began developing a treatment, Ambassador Daniel Harris prepared to return to Axis Prime. He stood in his office on Earth, looking at the dress uniform he had not worn in 6 months. Lisa Monroe entered carrying a data tablet. The ship is ready, she told him. Sophie says she will have a working treatment within 3 weeks if her initial tests go well. The council is asking when we can arrive. Daniel smiled slightly. Tell them we will arrive when we are ready. We are not rushing to accommodate their schedule anymore. Lisa nodded approvingly. The council also sent a formal request for you to address them about the plague situation. They want to know our terms for providing assistance. On terms? Daniel shook his head. We do not have terms. We are helping because people are dying. That is reason enough. Even after everything they did to us. Daniel turned to face her directly. Especially after everything they did to us. We are better than they thought we were. Better than they are. We prove that not by holding grudges but by being who we truly are. Humans help people. It is what we do. 3 weeks later, Daniel walked through the same massive doors of the council chamber he had walked out of 6 months earlier. But everything was different now. He was not standing on the lower platform. This time, a chair had been prepared for him at the same level as the council members. He was not presenting an application. He was there to save their civilization. Speaker Vorn looked older than Daniel remembered. The proud Velcrin leader seemed diminished somehow, his scales dull and his eyes tired. "Ambassador Harris," he said formally. "Thank you for coming." Daniel nodded. "Dr. Sophie Blake and her team will arrive tomorrow with the treatment. We have tested it extensively, and we believe it will stop the plague." The Thorian matriarch leaned forward desperately. "What do you need from us? Resources, credits, technology? Name your price." "There is no price," Daniel said simply. "We are not here to profit from your suffering. We are here because it is the right thing to do." The council members looked at each other in confusion. Species did not help each other for free in their experience. There was always a price, always an angle, always something demanded in return. "I do not understand," Vorn admitted quietly. Daniel smiled without humor. "I know you do not. 6 months ago you told us we were too emotional. You said our feelings made us weak and unreliable. You said we needed 500 years to mature as a species before we could be trusted. But our emotions are not a weakness. They are our strength. We feel compassion even for those who wronged us. We choose to help even when we could walk away. That is what makes us human." The council chamber was silent. Finally, the Thorian matriarch spoke, tears running down her cybernetic face. "We were wrong about you. Completely wrong." "Yes," Daniel agreed. "You were. But that does not matter right now. Right now, people are dying, and we have a way to save them. Everything else can wait." Sophie Blake arrived the next day with her team and equipment. She immediately began coordinating with Thorian medical facilities to implement the treatment. The process was complex, requiring precise calibration of quantum fields around each patient, but it worked. Within hours of treatment, the first patients began showing improvement. Within days, the death toll dropped dramatically. Within 2 weeks, the plague was under control. The council watched in amazement as the young human scientists solved a problem their greatest minds could not crack. She did it by breaking every traditional rule, combining theories that should not work together, and trusting her instincts over established procedures. Everything the council had criticized about human methods turned out to be exactly what was needed. As the crisis began to fade, Speaker Vorn requested a private meeting with Daniel. They sat in a small room, just the two of them, and for the first time Daniel saw genuine humility in the Velcrin leader's eyes. "We misjudged your species terribly," Vorn said softly, "and now you have saved us despite having every reason to let us suffer. I do not know how to properly thank you." Daniel looked at him steadily. "Start by remembering this moment. Remember that the species you dismissed as too young and too emotional saved billions of lives when your ancient wisdom failed. Remember that different does not mean inferior." Vorn nodded slowly. "What happens now, Ambassador Harris? Will you consider rejoining negotiations for council membership?" Daniel stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "That depends on whether the council has learned anything from this experience. We will not come back as subordinates. We will not serve a probationary period. If humanity returns to this table, it will be as equals. Nothing less, I understand," Vorn said quietly. "I will discuss this with the other council members." As Daniel left the meeting, he knew things were about to change. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The treatment worked better than anyone had dared to hope. Within 3 weeks of Dr. Sophie Blake implementing her quantum resonance solution, the plague that had threatened to destroy entire civilizations was completely under control. Thorian hospitals that had been overwhelmed with dying patients were now processing recoveries. The Velcrin who had contracted the disease were healing. Even the few cases that had appeared in other species were successfully treated before the infection could spread. Sophie stood in the main medical facility on the Thorian homeworld, watching as the last critical patients were moved out of intensive care. She had not slept more than a few hours each night since arriving, working constantly to refine the treatment and train local medical staff in its application. Greg stood beside her, equally exhausted but smiling with satisfaction. "We did it," he said quietly. "We actually saved them." Sophie nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. "The treatment works, but the real question is why the council's scientists could not figure this out themselves. They have resources and knowledge that dwarf what we have. They should have solved this weeks before we even heard about it. But they think differently than we do," Greg replied. "They follow rigid procedures and established theories. We just threw everything at the problem and saw what stuck. A Thorian doctor approached them, bowing deeply in a gesture of profound respect. Dr. Blake, the matriarch, requests your presence at the council chamber. She wishes to honor you and your team for what you have done. Sophie glanced at Greg, then shook her head. Please thank the matriarch, but we do not need honors. We did what anyone should do when people are dying. Just tell her we are glad we could help. The doctor looked shocked. But you saved billions of lives. You deserve recognition and reward. We deserve sleep, Sophie said with a tired smile. Maybe some decent food. That would be reward enough. The doctor hurried away, clearly confused by these strange humans who saved the galaxy, and then refused to take credit for it. Greg laughed quietly. You know the council is going to insist on some kind of ceremony anyway. Probably, Sophie agreed. But let them do it for Ambassador Harris. He is better at dealing with all the political stuff. I just want to get back to my research station and sleep for about 3 days straight. In the council chamber, the atmosphere had completely changed from when Daniel had last been there. The arrogance and condescension were gone, replaced by genuine respect and something that looked almost like awe. Council members who had barely acknowledged human presence a year ago now stood when Daniel entered the room. Speaker Vorn approached him directly, and for the first time, the proud Velkrin leader bowed his head to someone he had once dismissed as primitive. Ambassador Harris, there are no words sufficient to express our gratitude. Your people have saved us when we could not save ourselves. Daniel accepted the thanks gracefully, but kept his expression neutral. Dr. Blake and her team deserve the credit. They did the actual work. I just made sure they had what they needed. Your entire species deserves credit, the Thorian matriarch said, her voice thick with emotion. Not just for solving the plague, but for choosing to help us after everything we did to you. We rejected you. We insulted you. We called you too young and too emotional to join our council. Yet when we needed you most, you came without hesitation and without demands. That kind of compassion is rare in the galaxy. The other council members murmured agreement. Daniel looked around the chamber and saw something he had never seen before in their faces, shame. They were finally understanding the magnitude of their mistake. We observed your people during the crisis, a Zephyr representative said through its translator. We watched how your ships operated. Colonel Ryan Mitchell's defense fleet provided security around our medical facilities without being asked. Captain Jake Sullivan's exploration vessels delivered supplies to remote colonies faster than our own ships could respond. Administrator Amy Peterson coordinated relief efforts across 17 different worlds with remarkable efficiency. Every human we encountered was helpful, professional, and kind. You showed us what true civilization looks like. Daniel felt a mix of pride and sadness. Pride in his people for being exactly who they were. Sadness that it had taken a crisis for the council to see human worth. We are not special, he said quietly. We are just humans being humans. This is who we have always been. You simply refused to see it before. The council chamber fell silent at those words. Vorn looked down at his clawed hands, unable to meet Daniel's eyes. You are correct, Ambassador. We were blind. We measured your worth by our standards instead of recognizing that different standards have their own value. We looked at your short history and saw inexperience instead of fresh perspective. We looked at your emotions and saw weakness instead of strength. We were wrong about everything. The question now, Daniel said carefully, is what happens next? The plague is defeated. The crisis is over. Does everything go back to the way it was before? Or has something fundamental changed? The Thorian matriarch stepped forward. For me, everything has changed. I will spend the rest of my life knowing that my children are alive, because humans chose compassion over revenge. I will never forget that. Other council members shared similar sentiments. They spoke of human courage, human innovation, and human kindness. They spoke of their own failures and blind spots. For hours, the council discussed how they had misjudged humanity and what they should do about it. Finally, Vorn addressed Daniel directly. We would like to extend a formal invitation for Earth to join the Galactic Council as a full member. No probationary period, no vassal state status, complete equality with all founding races. You have more than proven your worth. Daniel had known this was coming. The Council could hardly refuse membership now after humans had saved them. But he did not answer immediately. Instead, he excused himself and contacted President Nathan Brooks on Earth. They spoke privately for over an hour while the council waited nervously. When Daniel returned, his expression was serious. President Brooks thanks the Council for their generous offer. However, Earth needs time to consider whether Council membership is still what humanity wants. Vorn looked stunned. You are not accepting immediately? 6 months ago, we desperately wanted to join, Daniel explained. We thought membership was essential for our future. We believed we needed the Council's protection and guidance. But since leaving, we have learned something important. We have learned that humanity can thrive on its own. Our colonies are successful. Our trade networks are strong. Our technology is advancing rapidly. We are not the desperate supplicants we were before. So now we must ask ourselves whether joining the Council serves our interests, or whether we are better off remaining independent. The Council members looked at each other in alarm. They had expected gratitude and immediate acceptance. Instead, humans were considering refusing them just as they had once refused humanity. Please understand, Daniel continued, this is not about revenge or spite. This is about making the right choice for our people. You taught us that we do not need your approval to succeed. Now we must decide if we want to tie ourselves to your organization or continue on our own path. What would it take for humanity to accept membership? The Thorian matriarch asked desperately. Name your terms. We will meet them. Daniel shook his head. It is not about terms. It is about whether the Council has truly learned from this experience or whether you will go back to your old ways once the crisis is forgotten. You say everything has changed, but words are easy. We need to see if your actions match your promises. What actions would prove that to you? Vorn asked. That is for you to figure out, Daniel replied. Humanity will watch and wait. We will continue our independent path for now. If the Council demonstrates real change, real growth, real respect for different approaches in different species, then we might reconsider. But if you go back to the same old hierarchies and dismissive attitudes, then we will know your gratitude was temporary. Lisa Monroe watched the Council members process this unexpected response. Some looked angry at being essentially put on probation themselves. Others looked thoughtful, recognizing the justice in humanity's position. A few looked genuinely worried that they might lose the opportunity to have humans as allies. Over the next several days, something remarkable happened. The Council began changing without being asked. They started reviewing their policies toward minor species, recognizing that many of their regulations were exploitative. They opened scientific collaborations with races they had previously ignored. They sent diplomatic missions to human colonies to observe how humans conducted trade and governance. Captain Jake Sullivan received a visit from a Council exploration team asking to learn human exploration techniques. Amy Peterson found herself hosting Council economists who wanted to understand how she had built such successful trade relationships. Colonel Ryan Mitchell was invited to present his defensive strategies to Council military leaders, who admitted their own doctrines were outdated. Dr. Sophie Blake, despite her desire to avoid politics, became an unofficial advisor to Council research institutions. Scientists from half a dozen species came to her station to learn her methods. At first, they were skeptical of her chaotic approach, but as they worked with her team, they began to understand. Sophie did not just break rules randomly. She questioned why rules existed and whether they still made sense. The problem with the Council's scientific method is that it became rigid, Sophie explained to a group of Velcrin researchers. You have procedures that were established thousands of years ago, and you follow them without asking if they are still the best approach. That is not science. That is tradition masquerading as science. Real science requires questioning everything, including your own assumptions. One of the Velcrin scientists, an older female named Cora, nodded slowly. You are describing how we started thousands of years ago. We questioned everything then, but over time we became comfortable. We stopped questioning because the answers seemed settled. Perhaps we forgot that science is not about finding final answers, but about continuing to ask better questions. Exactly, Sophie said with a smile. That is what humans bring to the galaxy. We are new enough that we have not gotten comfortable yet. We still question everything. Sometimes that makes us seem chaotic or reckless, but sometimes it leads to breakthroughs like the plague treatment. Word of these changes reached Earth regularly. President Nathan Brooks read the reports with cautious optimism. They are trying, he told Helen. The question is whether these changes are genuine or just an attempt to convince us to join. Does it matter? Helen asked. If they improve their behavior to impress us, the result is still better treatment for everyone in the galaxy. Nathan smiled. True, either way we win. If they are genuine, we might eventually join a council worth joining. If they are just performing for us, we expose their flaws and force them to improve anyway. Back on Axis Prime, Daniel received daily reports about council activities. He watched carefully for signs of backsliding or false promises. Instead, he saw consistent effort to change. The council was not just talking about reform. They were implementing it. 3 months after the plague crisis ended, Speaker Vorn requested another private meeting with Daniel. They sat in the same small room as before, but the dynamic between them had shifted completely. "We have been trying to show you that we have changed," Vorn said without preamble. "But I realize now that trying to change to earn your approval misses the point. We should change because it is right, not because you are watching. So I want to tell you something honestly. We are not doing this for you anymore. We are doing it because you showed us how much better things could be. You showed us that our way was not the only way or even the best way. That lesson will not be forgotten whether you join us or not." Daniel studied the Velkrin leader carefully. There was no pride in Vorn's voice now, no arrogance or condescension, just honest recognition of truth. "That," Daniel said slowly, "is the first thing you have said that makes me think humanity might actually want to join your council someday." Vorn allowed himself a small smile. "Someday. But not today." "Not today," Daniel agreed. "But someday. If you keep growing and learning and questioning your assumptions like you are doing now, then someday we might build something together, something better than either of us could build alone." As Daniel left that meeting, he knew that humanity's path was still uncertain. They might eventually join the council. They might remain independent. They might create something entirely new. But whatever happened, the galaxy had changed, and humanity had been the catalyst for that change. That alone made everything worthwhile. The formal invitation arrived at Earth 3 weeks after the plague crisis ended. The Galactic Council requested that humanity reconsider joining as a full member, with complete voting rights, and no probationary period. The message was signed by all 7 founding races and included personal apologies from each council leader. Speaker Vorn's apology was particularly lengthy, acknowledging every insult and dismissal humanity had endured over 3 years of failed negotiations. President Nathan Brooks read the invitation in his office with Helen standing beside him. Outside the windows, Earth glowed peaceful and beautiful in the afternoon sun. So much had changed in less than a year. Humanity had gone from being rejected and dismissed to being courted and respected. It felt like a victory, but Nathan knew the real decision still lay ahead. "They are offering everything we originally wanted," Helen observed. "Full membership, equal rights, complete access to council resources and trade networks. 6 months ago, this would have seemed like a dream." Nathan nodded slowly. 6 months ago, we needed them. We thought joining the council was essential for humanity's future. Now I'm not so sure we need them at all. "The colony worlds are thriving," Helen agreed. "Our trade networks with the minor species are strong and growing. Our exploration efforts have opened up territories the council never bothered with. And our technology is advancing faster than it ever did when we were trying to meet council standards. Independence has been good for us," Nathan said. "We have discovered what humans can accomplish when nobody is telling us we are doing things wrong. The question is whether we throw that away to join a club that rejected us." Helen smiled slightly. "You already know what you want to do." "I can see it in your face," Nathan laughed. "Am I that obvious?" "Only to someone who has worked with you for 15 years, Helen replied. "You want to reject their offer?" "Not entirely," Nathan corrected. "I want to offer them something different, something better than just going back to the way things were before." He called for an emergency session of Earth's government. Representatives from every human colony world attended via hologram. Nathan presented the council's invitation, and then shared his own thoughts about what humanity should do. "The council has learned we are not as primitive as they believed," Nathan told the assembled leaders. "But I do not think they have learned enough. They still see the galaxy in terms of elder races who deserve power, and younger races who must earn their place. That fundamental view has not changed. They just decided to put us in the elder category because we saved them." Amy Peterson spoke from New Dakota, her image clear on the holographic display. "Our trade relationships with the minor species have shown me something important. There are dozens of races out there who have been ignored or exploited by the Council for centuries. They have valuable cultures, useful technologies, and important perspectives, but the Council treats them as irrelevant because they are not powerful enough to matter. That is exactly my concern. Nathan agreed. If we join the council as it exists now, we become part of that system. We become one more elder race looking down on everyone else. I do not want that for humanity. Captain Jake Sullivan joined the conversation from the horizon's edge. We have seen incredible things in the unexplored regions, species and civilizations that could contribute so much to the galactic community, if given the chance. The council's structure keeps them locked out. Maybe this is our opportunity to change that. Dr. Sophie Blake appeared on another display from her research station. The council's rigid approach to science almost cost billions of lives. They need to learn that different methods and perspectives make everyone stronger, but they will not learn that if we just accept their invitation and become part of their existing power structure. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that joining the council would give humanity security and legitimacy. Others insisted that independence had proven more valuable than council membership ever could be. Finally, Nathan called for a vote. The result was clear. Humanity would not simply accept the council's invitation. They would propose something new. 2 days later, Ambassador Daniel Harris stood before the Galactic Council once again. This time he was not alone. Behind him stood representatives from 20 different species, including several that had never been allowed in the council chamber before. There were Krell traders, explorers from small independent worlds, scientists from marginalized colonies, and leaders of minor civilizations that the council barely acknowledged. Speaker Vorn looked surprised and confused. Ambassador Harris, we invited you to discuss humanity's membership. Why have you brought all these others? Daniel smiled. Because humanity's answer to your invitation depends on them. President Brooks has authorized me to present a proposal to the council. We will join, but not as members of the organization that rejected us. We propose that the Galactic Council transforms into something new. Something better. A true federation where every species has a voice regardless of age or power. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Vorn raised his hand for silence. You want to restructure the entire council? That is impossible. The 7 founding races have governed galactic affairs for thousands of years. This system works, does it? Daniel asked quietly. Your system failed to prevent a plague that nearly destroyed 3 major civilizations. Your system ignores entire species that could have helped solve problems if you had listened to them. Your system rejected humanity for being different instead of recognizing that our differences made us valuable. That does not sound like a system that works very well. The Thorian matriarch leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador? Daniel gestured to the representatives behind him. These species have been trading with humanity for months. We have built relationships based on mutual respect and fair dealing. They have technologies, knowledge, and perspectives that would benefit everyone. We propose that the Council becomes a true federation with representatives from all species, not just the powerful ones. Every member gets a vote. Every voice matters. The elder races would still have influence through their experience and resources, but they would not have absolute control. This is absurd, a Velcrin Council member protested. These minor species do not have the wisdom or stability to participate in galactic governance. They would make foolish decisions that endanger everyone. Like the foolish decision humanity made when we solved your plague? Daniel asked sharply. Or the foolish decision we made when we established fair trade networks that benefit everyone involved? Or maybe the foolish decision we made when we explored regions you were too afraid to enter and found valuable resources and allies. Please tell me more about our foolish decisions. The council member fell silent, unable to respond. Lisa Monroe stepped forward with a data tablet. We have prepared a detailed proposal for how this new federation would operate. Voting structures that balance experience with inclusivity, trade regulations that protect small species from exploitation, scientific collaboration programs that encourage diverse approaches. Everything humanity learned in 6 months of independence is built into this framework. Speaker Vorn studied the proposal carefully. His face showed conflict between his old pride and new understanding. Finally, he spoke. This would fundamentally change everything we have built over thousands of years. Yes, Daniel agreed. It would. The question is whether you have truly learned from recent events or whether you just want things to go back to the way they were. Humanity will not join a council that maintains the same old hierarchies, but we will gladly help build something new. Something better. A federation where being different is valued instead of punished. where young species are not told to wait 500 years before their voices matter, where every civilization contributes to the greater good as equals. The Thorian matriarch looked at her fellow council members. He is right. We almost died because we were too rigid in our thinking. If humans had been part of our scientific efforts years ago, perhaps we would have prevented this plague entirely. How many other problems could we solve with more diverse perspectives? The minor species trust humanity, added a Zephyr representative. They do not trust us. We have exploited them for too long. If we want to build a stronger galactic community, we need to acknowledge our failures and change. Vorn sat back in his chair, looking older and more tired than ever. If we accept this proposal, the council as we know it ends. Everything changes. Everything is already changing, Daniel said gently. You can either lead that change or be left behind by it. Humanity has shown we can thrive without you. These other species are learning the same lesson. You need this federation more than we do. The question is whether you are wise enough to see that. The council debated for 3 days. Arguments raged between those who wanted to preserve the old order and those who recognized that change was inevitable. Finally, they called for a vote. The proposal passed with support from 5 of the 7 founding races. The Galactic Council would dissolve and reform as the Galactic Federation, with representatives from all interested species. The transition took months to complete. New governmental structures had to be designed. Voting procedures had to be established. Representatives from dozens of species had to be brought to Axis Prime and given proper facilities. Through it all, Daniel and his team worked alongside former council members to build something unprecedented in galactic history. On the day the new Galactic Federation held its first official session, Daniel sat in a chamber redesigned to accommodate representatives from 40 different species. Gone were the elevated seats that made some species look down on others. Everyone sat at the same level, equals in voice and vote. Speaker Vorn had been elected as the Federation's first chancellor, but his role was different now. He was a coordinator and facilitator, not a ruler. When he called the session to order, his voice carried a humility that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. This Federation was born from a crisis that taught us a valuable lesson, Vorn said to the assembled representatives. We learned that different does not mean inferior. We learned that young civilizations can teach old ones. We learned that true strength comes from unity and diversity, not from maintaining rigid hierarchies. Humanity showed us this truth when they walked away from our rejection and built something better on their own. Then they showed us again when they helped us, despite having every reason to refuse. Today we honor those lessons by building a galactic community where every species matters. Lisa Monroe leaned close to Daniel and whispered, "Did you ever imagine this when you walked out 6 months ago?" Daniel smiled as he looked around the chamber at representatives from species who would never have been allowed here under the old system. "No," he admitted quietly. "I just wanted to leave with our dignity intact. I never imagined we would change the entire galaxy." "But we did," Lisa said with satisfaction. "No," Daniel corrected gently. "We showed them that change was possible. They chose to embrace it. That is the real victory, not forcing change on others, but inspiring them to choose it themselves." The first Federation session lasted 12 hours, as representatives from dozens of species shared their perspectives on galactic trade, exploration and cooperation. Ideas that would never have been heard under the old council were discussed seriously. Solutions that combined approaches from multiple species were developed collaboratively. The galaxy was learning to think differently, and it was stronger for it. As Daniel finally left the chamber at the end of that historic day, he paused at the massive doors where he had made his dramatic exit months earlier. Katie Hughes had traveled from her trading post to attend the session, and she stood waiting for him with a smile. "I never got to thank you properly," Daniel told her. "If you had not forwarded that distress call from the Thorian ship, none of this might have happened." Katie shrugged. "I just did what felt right. That seems to be the human way, does it not? We do what feels right even when it would be easier not to." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, that is exactly the human way. And maybe that is the real lesson we taught the galaxy. That doing what is right matters more than doing what is easy or profitable or expected. The Council spent thousands of years doing what was easy for them. Humanity showed them that right is better than easy." As he walked out into the night air of Axis Prime, Daniel looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were still exploring, still discovering, still building relationships with new species. The galaxy was bigger and more wonderful than the old council had ever acknowledged. Now finally, everyone would get the chance to explore it together as equals. The council had begged humanity to come back. Humanity had returned but refused to simply restore what had been broken. Instead, they had helped build something new, something better. And the galaxy would never be the same.